had always believed in the sanctity of family. My mom was my rock, my confidant, the person I turned to for everything. And Alex, my boyfriend, was the love of my life, my partner in dreams and adventures. Together, they were the two people I trusted most in the world, but that all changed the day I uncovered the truth about their hidden secret. It all began with a simple pregnancy test. Positive. My heart raced, a whirlwind of excitement and fear flooding my senses. I envisioned our future, cradling a tiny hand, late-night feedings, and the laughter of a child filling our home. I couldn't wait to share this monumental news with the two people I loved most. When I told Alex, his reaction was everything I had hoped for. He was overjoyed, his face lighting up with an enthusiasm that made my heart swell. We spent the evening wrapped in each other's arms, dreaming up names and planning nursery themes. It felt perfect, as if nothing could disrupt our little bubble of happiness. But when I called my mom, her response was oddly subdued. She seemed distant, her voice lacking the warmth and excitement I expected. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," she said, but her tone didn't match her words. I brushed it off, chalking it up to pre-grandma jitters or perhaps the weight of impending motherhood. Days turned into weeks, and my mom's behavior became increasingly perplexing. She avoided eye contact, often fidgeting with her hands, and frequently made excuses to leave the room whenever the baby was mentioned. I tried to reassure myself, thinking maybe she was just overwhelmed, but a nagging feeling told me there was something more troubling beneath the surface. Then came the evening that would unravel everything. While cleaning out my mom's closet, I stumbled upon a hidden drawer, tucked away behind old shoes and forgotten trinkets. Curiosity piqued, I pulled it open. Inside, I found a pregnancy test. Positive. My blood ran cold, and a chilling dread filled my gut. I knew what this meant. I confronted my mom that night, my heart racing and tears streaming down my cheeks. "Why is there a pregnancy test in your drawer?" I demanded, my voice trembling with emotion. She didn't deny it. Instead, she sighed deeply, her face pale and drawn. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she murmured, her eyes filled with regret. "I've been having an affair with Alex." My world shattered. My mother, the woman I had idolized, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. And with my boyfriend, the man I had envisioned spending my life with, a torrent of anger, betrayal, and confusion washed over me. How could they do this to me? To us? The foundation of trust I had built with both of them crumbled in an instant. As I sat there staring at my mother, a profound sense of loss enveloped me. The bond I had cherished with her was irrevocably broken. The love I felt for Alex twisted into something dark, tainted by the betrayal that felt too deep to comprehend. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As my mom continued to speak, her voice trembling, she revealed a secret that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. "Your father," she began, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, "was not who you thought he was. Alex is your half-brother." My mind raced, processing the implications. The man I had always considered my father was not biologically related to me. The man I loved, who I had imagined raising a child with, was my half-brother. The revelation felt like a punch to the gut, an overwhelming wave of disbelief crashing over me. My life had been built on a lie, and the truth was tearing me apart. In the days that followed, I wrestled with my emotions. Anger and confusion churned within me, battling against a strange sense of compassion for my mother. She had carried this heavy secret for so long, and I could only imagine the burden it had placed on her soul. Yet the betrayal I felt for both her and Alex consumed me. I withdrew from everyone, isolating myself in the confines of my room where the weight of the world pressed down on me. I scrolled through photos on my phone, moments of joy now tainted by the truth. My mind raced with questions that had no answers. How could my mother have kept this from me? Why hadn't Alex told me the truth? As I tried to piece together the shattered fragments of my life, I found myself visiting the park where Alex and I had shared countless memories. Each bench and tree whispered secrets of our past, but now they felt alien, tainted by the revelation of our bloodline. I recalled his laughter, the way he held my hand, and the dreams we had built together. All of it was now clouded by betrayal. In my heart, I knew that I could never see Alex the same way again. Our relationship was irrevocably damaged, and love alone couldn't erase the stain of his actions. I felt like a stranger in my own life, adrift in a sea of confusion and grief. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that healing would take time. I sought solace in the stories of others who had faced betrayal, reading about families torn apart and the long road to reconciliation. I found strength in their journeys, learning that I, too, could find a way to move forward, even if it felt impossible. Slowly, I started to forge a new path, one defined by resilience and self-discovery. I began journaling my thoughts, expressing my pain and confusion, trying to make sense of the whirlwind around me. I reached out to friends who had supported me through thick and thin, leaning on their love as I began to rebuild my life. While the shadows of betrayal lingered, I recognized that my journey was not just about healing from the wounds inflicted by those I had loved. It was also about reclaiming my identity, finding strength within myself, and understanding the complexities of family and love. The discovery of my parents' affair had turned my world upside down, but I knew I would rise from the ashes of this turmoil. It would be a long and arduous journey, filled with painful truths and difficult choices, but I was determined to emerge stronger, wiser, and more aware of the bonds that truly mattered. I withdrew from everyone, isolating myself in the confines of my room, where the weight of the world pressed down on me. I scrolled through photos on my phone, moments of joy now tainted by the truth. My mind raced with questions that had no answers. How could my mother have kept this from me? Why hadn't Alex told me the truth? As I tried to piece together the shattered fragments of my life, I found myself visiting the park where Alex and I had shared countless memories. Each bench and tree whispered secrets of our past, but now they felt alien, tainted by the revelation of our bloodline. I recalled his laughter, the way he held my hand, and the dreams we had built together. All of it was now clouded by betrayal. In my heart, I knew that I could never see Alex the same way again. Our relationship was irrevocably damaged, and love alone couldn't erase the stain of his actions. I felt like a stranger in my own life, adrift in a sea of confusion and grief. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that healing would take time. I sought solace in the stories of others who had faced betrayal, reading about families torn apart and the long road to reconciliation. I found strength in their journeys, learning that I, too, could find a way to move forward, even if it felt impossible. Slowly, I started to forge a new path, one defined by resilience and self-discovery. I began journaling my thoughts, expressing my pain and confusion, trying to make sense of the whirlwind around me. I reached out to friends who had supported me through thick and thin, leaning on their love as I began to rebuild my life. While the shadows of betrayal lingered, I recognized that my journey was not just about healing from the wounds inflicted by those I had loved. It was also about reclaiming my identity, finding strength within myself, and understanding the complexities of family and love. The discovery of my parents' affair had turned my world upside down, but I knew I would rise from the ashes of this turmoil. It would be a long and arduous journey, filled with painful truths and difficult choices, but I was determined to emerge stronger, wiser, and more aware of the bonds that truly mattered. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy for Alex, a tangle of emotions that left me reeling. I can't just forget everything. The trust is gone, Mom. I understand, she said, her voice trembling, but I want to make amends if you'll let me. I want to be part of your life again. We spent hours talking, unraveling the threads of our fractured relationship. Slowly, I felt a flicker of hope igniting, a chance for healing if we both put in the effort. It wouldn't be easy, but I could see a path forward, and it began with honesty. As our conversation came to a close, I made a decision. I want to talk to Alex. I need to hear his side of the story. The next day, I reached out to Alex, my heart pounding as I typed the message. Can we meet? I need to talk. To my surprise, he responded quickly, agreeing to meet at our favorite park. When I arrived, I found him sitting on a bench, his face a mix of anxiety and regret. Seeing him again stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me: love, betrayal, anger, and pain. Hey, he said softly, his voice cracking. Hey, I replied, taking a seat beside him. The familiar warmth of the sun felt strangely comforting, a stark contrast to the tension between us. I'm sorry, he began, his gaze fixed on the ground. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was completely blindsided by your mom's confession. I don't know how to fix this. Can you fix this? I challenged, my tone sharp. You knew about the affair, but did you really think it wouldn't affect me? You were my boyfriend. How could you do this? He looked up, desperation in his eyes. I didn't know. I didn't find out until she told me. I love you. I did love you. But everything just spiraled out of control. A heavy silence settled between us. Do you love her? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. No, he exclaimed, shaking his head vehemently. I never loved her like I loved you. This was a mistake, one I regret every day. I would give anything to go back and change it. His words hit me like a wave, drowning me in confusion. But can I ever trust you again? Can we ever go back to what we had? I don't know, he admitted, his voice breaking. But I want to try. I want to make things right between us. As we talked, I realized the depth of his regret. But could that be enough to mend what was broken? The truth hung heavy in the air, and I had a decision to make, one that could alter the course of my life forever. Days later, just as I was beginning to find some semblance of balance, my life was upended again. I received an unexpected visitor at my door, a woman I had never met, but her resemblance to Alex was unmistakable. Hi, I'm Sarah, she said, her voice steady yet uncertain. I'm Alex's sister. Stunned, I let her in, my heart racing. "Sister?" She nodded, and I could see the weight of her concern etched on her face. "I came to talk about what's been happening. Alex told me everything, and I want to understand how we got here. This isn't just about you and him anymore. It's about family." I was taken aback, but her presence was oddly comforting. "I didn't know he had a sister. He hasn't mentioned me much. I moved away for college and didn't keep in touch as often as I should have, but I can see how this has affected him, and I want to help if I can." As we talked, Sarah shared her perspective, recounting how Alex had always struggled with feeling like the black sheep of their family. "He's always wanted to prove himself, and I think this situation has only intensified that. He needs you, but he also needs his family." Her words struck a chord within me. Maybe this was an opportunity, not just to rebuild with Alex, but to build bridges with a family I never knew I had. With Sarah's encouragement, I began to reconsider my stance. I knew it wouldn't be easy and healing would take time, but perhaps forgiveness was possible. I wanted to explore what rebuilding trust could look like, not just with Alex, but with my mother and now Alex's sister as well. In the days that followed, I reached out to both Alex and my mother, expressing my desire to try and mend our relationships. We decided to meet together in a neutral space, a local park where the sun filtered through the trees, casting a hopeful glow on our gathering. As we sat down, I looked at both of them, feeling the weight of my decision. "I don't know if we can go back to how things were, but I'm willing to try to move forward," I began, my voice steady. "It's going to take time, and I need honesty from both of you." Alex nodded, his expression earnest. "I promise to be open with you. I don't want to lose you again." My mother clasped her hands together, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so grateful for this chance. I'll do everything I can to regain your trust." With Sarah there as a support, I felt a flicker of hope ignite in my heart. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with difficult conversations and emotions laid bare, but for the first time since discovering the truth, I could see a path forward, a chance to heal and redefine what family truly meant. Together, we would navigate this tangled web of relationships, discovering new bonds and unexpected strength in our shared journey. The story was far from over. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where love and forgiveness might just find a way to flourish amidst the scars of betrayal. So my brother is sort of a niche micro-celebrity with a decent following, like to the point where a small percent of people who see this might know who he is. Most of his content relates to food and eating natural whole foods, but it is apparent from his videos he sees this diet as part of a certain ideology. You may know the type. He sees eating steak and drinking raw milk as an act of resistance to the government. He believes things like the World Economic Forum taking over the planet and feeding us bugs is real. He believes in things such as white genocide and the Great Replacement. He is anti any form of birth control. He believes that immigrants are invading our country and will be the failure of the United States, like it was to the Roman Empire, and more crazy shit I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, this has slowly been building for years, to the point where he's a total nut job now. Should I have been calling him out on these things as this progressed? Yes, but at the same time when his actions like this began, I was only probably 12, 13. So in the early stages of this, during his 2016 Trump phase, I wasn't old enough to be politically informed, let alone navigate a conversation like this. Around 2020, he was a pretty mellow dude. I think he voted third party in that election. But at that point, he was a very reasonable guy. He was just pretty moderate, liked guns but wasn't crazy, got the COVID vaccine but didn't take social distancing too seriously. He was just like a normal dude. However, around 2021-2022, he began to spiral. Before I go into explaining his history, I have to give more context to his personality. He has been extreme his entire life. When he gets into something, it has to be his entire personality. He is also extremely dramatic. When he was 12, he went to church camp for a couple of days and learned about what suicide was. Afterwards, he kept going on about how he was going to kill himself every time a minor issue arose. My whole childhood, he would be screaming with my parents back and forth, having all these issues, and I remember as a child this gave me the idea that he was a ticking time bomb not to be challenged with, an idea that I believe to an extent has been instilled into me. To explain his spiral, it began with the internet workout challenge, 75 Hard. Right. That was the start to his alt-right pipeline. Anyway, with that program, he thinks that it made him realize he was living life as a degenerate, and that this world is filled with evil and degeneracy that needs to be condemned. Keep in mind, for him, things like immigrants wanting to come to the USA and refusing to assimilate is degeneracy. All people that are LGBTQ are participating in degeneracy, etc. All those things that come from hate are his idea of degeneracy. Sounds judgmental, right? So long story short, this led to his next phase, Orthodox Christianity. Now, all of this has been reflected in his content. He was on and off trying to be an influencer since 2016, but hit his stride in 2020 on TikTok with bait content and no real consistent niche. He tried finding his niche for a while, first with male cheerleading, but eventually found it in this hatred under the guise of self-improvement. While a lot of the content would be food-related, he would throw in conspiracies about COVID-19 being fake, about the World Economic Forum, about Jews running the world, how the FBI supplies the guns in school shootings, and more. And of course, recently, in this new Orthodox Christian phase, he now posts about that. Now, in this Orthodox Christian phase, in less than 6 months, he got married to someone from a Christian dating app, dropped out of his doctorate program to go live in a rural area, and they are expecting a child. Anyway, this takes us to now. I am dating a woman who is a second-generation immigrant. We have been dating since we were 17 and 18, and we are deeply in love. She has come from a hard background, with her family not knowing American systems. She was forced from a young age to be independent and figure things out, because her single mother did not know how all these systems work, and she was busy doing what she could to make ends meet. Despite this, she is doing great. Currently has a 4.0 in college, and is all around an amazing girl. She's super kind, outgoing, etc. I could go on. Now, my other brother, the middle child, is engaged to a first-generation immigrant. They met in college. She can relate a lot to my girlfriend as they are both brown Muslim girls, and they share many similar experiences. It is slightly different because she comes from a high-status family in her native country and is a first-generation immigrant, so her background is a bit different from my girlfriend, but they have a lot in common and get around very well. As a whole, the four of us get along greatly and are pretty close. Anyway, my brother has posted many things that are extremely scary and dangerous. Many of these things relate directly against us. Anti-immigrant things, things that are anti-interracial marriage, anti-Muslim rhetoric, etc. If he was a normal Trumpy, I wouldn't even care too much. We all have family members we disagree with. But it's deeper than that. When my mom tried to confront him on this, he went on a tangent and said tons of crazy shit. I'll just put two of these in a simple bullet point form to make it easier to read. He talked about how in school he has been brainwashed to hate himself for being white, and told my mom she hates herself. He said that our white culture is under attack from immigrants and that there is no issue with him wanting to preserve our race, since we created the great civilized nations of this world and most of the great modern advances in math and science, which is just ignoring all of the great advancements from Asia, the Middle East. Anyway, there was more, but I think you can all get the point. This is not just a normal conservative guy I disagree with or normal Trump supporter. This is someone who I would consider a white supremacist. Because of this, my girlfriend, my brother, his fiancé, and I all do not want to be around him. Keep in mind, he also carries a gun with him at all times, which adds to our uncomfortability. Because of this, my parents are heartbroken and are constantly telling us about how we need to reach out to him and make it known how we feel because we need to talk about any grievances we have and make amends. My dad went on a long rant about how he has had a lot of family drama because his siblings used to be jealous of him being spoiled as the youngest child and other juvenile things like that. He told me that even though I think this is a big issue, it is not in the grand scheme, and it is just as important as those small family feuds. He keeps talking about how having a brother is such a magical thing, and how I am throwing that all away by not wanting to communicate how I feel about him. Keep in mind, my brother knows how we feel. He did not reach out immediately after my parents tried to talk to him about this. My parents had to push him. This led him to him trying to apologize once, but it was more along the lines of him just explaining his worldview, and then ended in him saying he would not post about the doom and gloom anymore. No dialogue of the actual racism at display. Anyway, today I was going over everything I know about him in my mind, and out of frustration I called him and confronted him about it. I will admit I got pretty frustrated and wasn't as clear as I could have been, but I put everything out on the table. I could tell he was taken aback by how upfront I was, and how I knew things he maybe thought I didn't know because he began to stutter and seemed confused about how I knew things, but he then began to defend those positions. He began to start trying to debate me on these things, but I told him I didn't care to talk about policy and that I was simply making it clear from my own mouth that if he is going to post hateful things out into the world that are anti-immigrants and refer to them as barbaric invaders, people who are immigrants are going to react accordingly and not want to be around him. Well, afterwards, I talked to my parents for like 7 hours straight. While we agreed on some, there was a lot we disagreed on. They kept telling me how I needed to talk to him and work this out, how we need a happy family, and me going off on him will not lead to any reconciliation, and how me not communicating with him is the reason our family is falling apart. They defended him in what he said to an extent, telling me he is ignorant, but that I'm ignorant as well because I don't know why he believes those things. I told them I don't need to give grace to someone 6 years older than me, and that I want to just make it known how I feel, and he can react accordingly. But they don't see it that way. They kept telling me how it was a two-way street, how I don't really know how he feels, how I just need to talk to him and work it out, etc. Well, at this point, I don't really care about working it out. Would I accept an apology and acknowledgement from him? Yes, 100%. But I have made it known how I feel, and I feel like at this point it is up to him to realize the breaking apart of this family is because of his own actions. However, because of my parents, I feel extremely guilty about all of this, to the point where I am struggling to eat or sleep, and it feels like it is having an impact on my school and relationship with my girlfriend. Brother is white supremacist. Parents guilt-tripping me for not accepting him. Here is some backstory. I always used to help people. I was too nice. Guess what? I started to feel used. People either from the beginning or during started to expect me to babysit. I was their go-to babysitter. This was cousins and siblings. There was even some lie that cousins would tell me where they'd promise my 13, 14-year-old self they'd bring me to get my nails done. I'd be excited, but it never actually happened. Multiple times. And with sisters, I was just treated like I had to help. I was afraid to say no. I think when I did, they'd argue, but how bad I was. I don't even know if I did say no ever. But I think I sometimes did, but I don't know. I thought they got mad if I said no, so maybe I did. Sometimes. Or I could just tell. Eventually, in my mid-teens, I knew something had to change, so I started to say no, which was freeing, but not easy. It became where I'd never help years later, and my brother would step in to help them instead. As of now, I barely do help. My brother would mostly help. I used to help a lot until I constantly felt dread and anxiety, hated visiting family because I always felt like they'd ask me to babysit. Unpaid, by the way, which I never really minded or even thought of until recently. Lately, I'm just a bit angry at the world era, but I know I'll heal. I'm angry at myself for being too dumb and nice and naive in the past, overlooking certain behaviors from people, and now I have to heal myself. This is just a minor part of it, but I'm also starting to have more of a backbone. Like if people speak to me in a tone where they expect me to help, instead of, asking me if I want to, I will decline, or even tell them that it isn't my responsibility. Recently, I told a family member that I'm not being bad, but it isn't me choosing to have babies. The stress, responsibility of it shouldn't be put onto me. Recently, I was called selfish by my brother. We are close. He is close age to me. He knows what I went through and why I stopped saying yes as much to people. He knows I felt used and like nobody helps me and would help me if it was the other way around. It all started because he was discussing how our sister is due to have her baby. She has 3 young kids and will need help and a nanny for when she's in the hospital. This is totally understandable. I didn't exactly plan to help my sister, however. I sometimes did think if she asked me, I don't mind babysitting for a while to help her. What annoys me is when it's expected of me, and if I'm treated as if I'm bad if I don't. This sister, a few months ago, we had disagreements, and she was overly critical of me, constantly commenting on any of my flaws, even minor things, daily, for hours. And she also kept dismissing my feelings by calling me too sensitive, and even treating me like I'm crazy by being upset due to her behavior, harsh words, smallish but insulting names she'd call me. I honestly think she may have been gaslighting me purposely. At the time, I was also in the wrong sometimes. because I became overwhelmed by helping her with her children, it was my fault. Because I should have communicated instead of tired myself out and then became grumpy towards her, but I think I also felt unappreciated, which caused it too. I've since apologized. She barely apologized to me too. At first, she just kept brushing my feelings off and acting like I'm some bad person, said harsh things to me, but acted like she was trying to help me, and basically ignored me when I kept trying to communicate to fix things between us. And I'd also find out she would message others while ignoring me, but she would reach out to me or text me when she needed me for something. I think it's no wonders I'm not exactly desperate to help her after everything. I feel very alone, to be honest, due to the things my brother said to me, but Jay also understand his point of view. The thing is, I'm just scared to help or be too nice to people anymore, in case they end up mistreating me or I start to feel one-sided. At my core, I am helpful and kind, but lately I don't know if it's because I'm unhealed and depressed. I've really just not been caring as much about helping, and I am realizing that that doesn't make me a bad person, but my family expects and views me as a bad person if I don't help. I want to heal and let go of the hurt because I'm clearly operating from a damaged point of view, but IDK how? I also don't want to give in and be too nice, or do it simply because I'm viewed as bad if I don't. How can I move forward? I may go to therapy for many things, but Jay can't afford it now, but I'm desperate to heal and stop letting my past hurts affect the way I view the world in general. I get some things I said sounded harsh, but it's all from pain, which I need to heal. I shouldn't have said they wouldn't help me if I needed it. I truly do like to help people, but I end up feeling unappreciated and drained sometimes, especially when I become people's go-to person. I don't want to internalize the view of me being selfish. I don't want to start believing I am a bad, selfish person and can't see when I'm in the wrong. I don't believe that's true at all. I always self-reflect and apologize if I think I was. My family sort of expect me to help with family children because I am single and don't have kids. Just tonight, my brother was discussing how our sister is due for her baby, but he spoke in a way where, because he won't be here, I should help her. I used to be too nice and always help babysit for anyone, until I started to feel used and unappreciated and like people just expected it. I mostly got out of that for my own sanity. I started to feel super anxious when visiting family because they'd ask me to babysit always. Tonight I basically said I don't mind helping, but not for too long because I have my own life. I get that sounded harsh, but I was irritated at how I'm just treated like I have to help. I was called selfish, told I can't see when I'm wrong, and now I just feel very alone and sad, to be honest. I like helping people, but I'm trying to protect myself. I don't ever want to feel like I'm being used or expected to do it, or feel like I'm giving love to people and not really getting the same back. I'm really viewing things from an unhealed perspective, but I can't afford therapy right now. Social media helped me to set boundaries and say no, and it helped me realize I'm not bad if I say no, but I'm treated like I'm bad if I don't. So confusing. How I found out my husband was living a double life. He had another family outside. It was a Tuesday morning, the sun streaming through the curtains, casting long shadows across the bedroom. I stirred awake, the scent of coffee wafting from the kitchen. My husband, David, was already up, humming a tune as he prepared breakfast. Our life seemed idyllic. We had a beautiful home, 2 wonderful children, and a love that I had always believed was unbreakable. But that morning, a seed of doubt was planted, a tiny crack in the facade of our perfect world. It started with a peculiar text message on my phone. It was from an unknown number, a simple message that read, "I miss you." I dismissed it as a mistake, a spam message, but the nagging feeling persisted. Who could it be? Days turned into weeks, and the text messages continued. They were cryptic, filled with longing and regret. I tried to ignore them, to convince myself that they were nothing more than a harmless flirtation. But deep down, I knew that something was wrong. One evening, while David was out with friends, I decided to confront the sender. I replied to the text, asking who they were and what they wanted. The response was immediate, shocking me to my core. "I'm Sarah," the message read, "your husband's lover." My heart pounded in my chest. I felt sick, betrayed. How could David do this to me? To our family? I scrolled through the messages, reading about their secret meetings, their stolen moments. It was a world I had never known existed, a world that had been hidden from me for so long. When David returned home, I confronted him. I showed him the messages, my voice trembling with anger and disbelief. He was stunned, speechless. He denied everything at first, but I knew the truth. The evidence was overwhelming. David confessed. He had been seeing Sarah for over a year. They had a child together, a secret that he had kept hidden from me. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How could he have done this? How could he have lied to me for so long? The days that followed were a blur. I felt numb, empty. I couldn't understand how I could have been so blind. How could I have trusted someone who had betrayed me so deeply? I moved out, taking our children with me. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was the only way to start healing. The betrayal had shattered my world, leaving me feeling lost and alone. As time passed, I began to rebuild my life. I focused on my children, on providing them with the love and support they needed. I sought therapy, trying to come to terms with what had happened. It was a long and difficult journey, but I eventually found a sense of peace. I realized that the betrayal had not defined me. It was a painful experience, but it had also made me stronger, more resilient. And as for David, I hope that he finds the redemption he seeks. But for now, I am focused on moving forward, on building a new life for myself and my children. The road to recovery. The years that followed were a roller coaster of emotions. I struggled to rebuild my life, to find a sense of normalcy. The betrayal had left deep scars, but I was determined to heal. I focused on my children, providing them with the love and support they needed. I sought therapy, trying to come to terms with what had happened. It was a long and difficult journey, but I eventually found a sense of peace. David, meanwhile, was consumed by guilt. He reached out to me, pleading for forgiveness. He claimed he had made a terrible mistake, that he loved me and our children more than anything. I was hesitant to forgive him. The betrayal had been so deep, the pain so profound. But I also knew that holding on to anger and resentment would only hurt me in the end. After much deliberation, I decided to give David a second chance. It wasn't easy. There were trust issues to overcome, wounds to heal. But with patience, understanding, and a lot of hard work, we slowly began to rebuild our relationship. It was a long and difficult road, but we eventually found our way back to each other. We learned to trust again, to communicate openly and honestly. We created new memories, new traditions. Years later, as I watched our children play together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. We had survived the betrayal, the pain, and the uncertainty, and in the end we had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more in love than ever before. As our children grew older, we realized that they had been deeply affected by the betrayal. They had witnessed our pain, our struggles, but they had also seen our love, our resilience. We worked together to help them heal, to provide them with the support they needed. We talked openly about what had happened, answered their questions honestly. Over time, our children began to understand. They saw that their parents had made mistakes, but that we were committed to making things right. They learned the importance of forgiveness, of love, and of family. And so our family, once shattered, was slowly but surely reunited. We had weathered the storm, emerged stronger on the other side. We had learned that even in the darkest of times, love could prevail. Months had passed since David's betrayal, and life had settled into a new routine. The scars were still there, but they had started to heal, transforming into faint reminders of the storm we had weathered together. I had learned to embrace the complexities of my emotions, anger, sadness, but also hope. One crisp autumn afternoon, as leaves danced in the wind, I decided to take the kids to a local fair. Laughter echoed around us, the scent of caramel apples and popcorn filling the air. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of joy. We rode the Ferris wheel, the view from the top offering a glimpse of our newfound normalcy. But deep down, the shadow of David's past still lingered, a ghost that refused to fade. That evening, while we were winding down at home, I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. Hesitating, I answered. It was Sarah. My heart raced, a mix of dread and curiosity flooding through me. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky yet resolute. "I need you to understand." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. I told myself it was for closure, but I knew it was more complicated than that. I needed answers and perhaps a semblance of peace. We met at a small coffee shop on the edge of town, the ambiance cozy yet charged with tension. Sarah looked different from what I had imagined, vulnerable and weary, with shadows under her eyes. She began to share her side of the story, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you. David and I met when I was at a low point in my life. He was my escape," she confessed, tears welling in her eyes. "But I didn't know about you or your children until it was too late." I listened, my emotions swirling. Anger, pity, confusion. Her story unfolded like a tragic novel, revealing her own struggles and the weight of her choices. It became evident that she had been as trapped in the web of deceit as I had. As we talked, Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me a picture. David's child with her, a little girl with his eyes and a familiar smile. My heart twisted. The girl was innocent, caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes. "Her name is Lily," Sarah said softly. "I want her to know her siblings. They deserve to be a part of each other's lives." A surge of protective instinct flared within me. This was a lot to process. The thought of my children meeting the daughter of my husband's mistress felt like a betrayal in itself, yet it also held a strange sense of possibility. Could this be the first step towards healing, or would it open old wounds? As I drove home that evening, my mind raced. Could I allow our families to intertwine? The image of my children playing with Lily haunted me. Could love overcome the shadows of our past? I discussed it with David later, carefully gauging his reaction. To my surprise, he was open to the idea, filled with remorse and a yearning for a fresh start. "I want to make things right," he said, his voice cracking, "for all of us." It was a leap of faith, but one that could either shatter our fragile peace or lead to a new chapter. After days of contemplation, I decided to meet Sarah again, this time to discuss how to move forward. We arranged a meeting at a neutral park where our children could play freely while we navigated this complicated path. As they ran around, the air filled with laughter and innocence, it felt surreal. David, Sarah, and I sat on a bench, our past hanging between us like a heavy fog. "We need to create boundaries," I stated firmly. "Our children deserve clarity, and we owe it to them to communicate openly." To my surprise, Sarah agreed wholeheartedly. We spent the afternoon discussing our hopes for the future, how to introduce our families while protecting our kids from the complexities of adult relationships. As the weeks turned into months, something unexpected happened. We began to form a strange bond, a shared understanding that stemmed from our mutual desire to heal. I found myself laughing with Sarah, sharing parenting tips, and discussing our children's milestones. We decided to introduce Lily to my children. The first meeting was bittersweet, filled with uncertainty. Yet, as they played together, a sense of unity began to blossom. It was a reminder that even in chaos, there could be connections that transcend betrayal. With time, we established a co-parenting routine. David and I worked on our marriage, confronting lingering issues with honesty and openness. Each step was challenging, but the presence of Lily brought a fresh perspective to our lives. As I watched our children grow, I realized that life had taken an unexpected turn, leading us down a path we never could have foreseen. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant acknowledging the past while bravely stepping into the future. One sunny afternoon, as we gathered for a picnic, David, Sarah, Lily, and my children, I looked around at the joy on their faces. It was an unconventional family gathering, but it was filled with love and laughter. In that moment, I understood life is messy, but love has a way of weaving itself through the cracks, creating something beautiful out of the shattered pieces. We were not just surviving, we were thriving together, forging a new kind of family that was uniquely ours. And as we sat together, I felt a deep sense of hope. No matter what had happened before, we were all on this journey together, stronger, united, and ready to embrace whatever came next. The day I discovered my husband fathered our nanny's child. It was a Tuesday, just like any other. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and my husband, Alex, was off to work. I had the day to myself, a rare luxury since our nanny, Maria, had recently given birth. I'd been feeling a bit lonely, missing the company of a grown-up. Deciding to treat myself, I headed to the local cafe for a latte and a good book. As I sipped my coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. It was a vague sensation, a whisper in the back of my mind. When I returned home, I found Maria cleaning the living room. She looked tired but content. We chatted for a while, catching up on her newborn. As we spoke, I couldn't help but notice a certain warmth in her eyes, a glow that seemed familiar. It was then that it hit me. Maria's baby, the one she'd been so excited about, looked eerily similar to Alex. The same shape of nose, the same color of eyes. A chill ran down my spine. I dismissed the thought at first. It was absurd. Alex loved me. He was faithful, but the doubt lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That evening, when Alex returned home, I confronted him. I told him about my suspicions, about the similarities between Maria's baby and our own. His face went pale. He denied everything at first, his voice trembling. But I wasn't convinced. I demanded a paternity test. Alex, reluctantly, agreed. The days that followed were a blur. I waited, consumed by anxiety and dread. When the results finally arrived, my heart sank. They confirmed my worst fears. Alex was the baby's father. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, and utterly alone. How could he have done this to me? To us? I couldn't understand. The days turned into weeks, and I struggled to cope. I sought therapy, tried to find solace in my friends and family, but nothing could ease the pain. The betrayal had shattered my world, leaving me feeling lost and adrift. The betrayal had shattered my world, leaving me feeling lost and adrift. I sought therapy, tried to find solace in my friends and family, but nothing could ease the pain. The betrayal had shattered my world, leaving me feeling lost and adrift. I struggled to reconcile the man I had loved with the man who had betrayed me. How could someone so kind, so caring, have done something so hurtful? The questions raced through my mind, a constant torment. Alex, meanwhile, was consumed by guilt. He apologized profusely, begging for my forgiveness. He claimed he had been drunk and had made a terrible mistake, but I couldn't accept his excuses. The hurt was too deep, the betrayal too profound. I decided to leave him. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the only way to move on. I packed my bags and moved out, taking our children with me. The months that followed were filled with pain and uncertainty. I struggled to rebuild my life, to find a new sense of normalcy. I missed my children, who were torn between their love for their father and their desire to be with me. Alex, desperate to reconcile, tried to reach out to me. He sent flowers, letters, and even visited my new home, but I was determined to stay away. I knew that forgiveness was a long road, and I wasn't ready to take that first step. As time passed, I began to heal. I focused on my children, on building a new life for us. I found solace in my friends and family who were there to support me through this difficult time. One day, a year after I had left Alex, I received a letter from him. It was a heartfelt apology, a plea for a second chance. He admitted that he had made a terrible mistake and that he was truly sorry. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to give our relationship another chance, but another part of me was afraid of being hurt again, afraid of losing myself in the process. After much deliberation, I decided to meet with Alex. We talked for hours, sharing our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. In the end, I realized that I still loved him, despite everything that had happened. We decided to give our relationship another try. It wasn't easy. There were trust issues to overcome, wounds to heal, but with patience, understanding, and a lot of hard work, we slowly began to rebuild our lives together. The years that followed were a roller coaster of emotions. Alex worked tirelessly to regain my trust. He was present for our children, involved in their lives in a way he hadn't been before. He also sought therapy to address the underlying issues that had led him to betray me. For my part, I tried to be patient, to give him a chance to prove himself. I knew that forgiveness was a process, not a destination. It was a journey that required time, understanding, and a willingness to let go of the past. Slowly but surely, our relationship began to heal. The wounds were deep, but with time and effort, they started to scar over. We rebuilt our lives together, creating new memories, new traditions. One day, a few years later, I found myself pregnant again. The news was a mixed blessing. On one hand, I was overjoyed at the prospect of another child. On the other hand, I was terrified of what it might mean for our relationship. Alex, however, was thrilled. He was eager to be a father again, and he vowed to be there for me and our children every step of the way. The birth of our second child was a joyous occasion. It brought us closer together, strengthened our bond, and as I held my newborn in my arms, I realized that forgiveness was a gift, not only to others, but also to oneself. It was a long and difficult road, but we had made it. We had survived the betrayal, the pain, and the uncertainty. And in the end, we had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more in love than ever before. Years later, as I watched our children play together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. We had come so far, overcome so much. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy our family had instead made us stronger, more united. And as I looked at Alex, the man I loved, I knew that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, new obstacles to overcome, but I was confident that together we could face anything. Years later, as I watched our children play together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. We had come so far, overcome so much. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy our family had instead made us stronger, more united. And as I looked at Alex, the man I loved, I knew that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, new obstacles to overcome, but I was confident that together we could face anything. One day, as we were walking through the park, Alex took my hand and said, "I want to ask you something." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew what he was going to say. "Will you marry me again?" he asked, kneeling down on one knee. I burst into tears of joy. Of course I would marry him again. He was the love of my life, the man who had shown me what true love was. Our second wedding was a simple affair, just close family and friends, but it was filled with love, laughter, and a sense of hope for the future. As we said our vows, I looked into Alex's eyes and saw the same love and devotion that had always been there. I knew that we would face whatever challenges came our way, hand in hand. Emily's mom, Tia, had always been a peculiar woman. From the moment I met her, a feeling of unease settled in my stomach. My friend had shared countless stories of Tia's cruel remarks, her constant belittling, and her strange habit of isolating Emily from her siblings and friends. It was as if Tia thrived on making her daughter feel small, all while pretending to be the life of the party. Despite the toxicity, Emily seemed resigned to her mother's whims, a puppet bound by invisible strings. At first I tried to keep my distance, but Tia's allure as a hostess often drew us back to her chaotic gatherings. Her parties were legendary, filled with laughter, loud music, and a thrumming energy that made you forget the unease lurking beneath the surface. But beneath the facade of fun lay something darker. Tia's flirtatious behavior with my boyfriend was unsettling, her comments increasingly inappropriate, each time she left him feeling uncomfortable and me feeling violated, as if she was stripping away the sanctity of our relationship for her amusement. One night, During a particularly wild party, Tia's behavior spiraled to new depths. She cornered my boyfriend, her laugh too loud, her body language too inviting. I could see the disgusted glances exchanged among Emily's sisters, their eyes wide with disbelief. When I confronted Tia, she merely smirked, a chilling glint in her eye, and recited a rap lyric that made my skin crawl. The words hung in the air like a dark omen, a clear message that she felt untouchable. It became evident to me that Tia's actions were not isolated incidents. They were part of a twisted game she played, a way to assert her dominance and control over those around her. What I once brushed off as harmless fun was now crystal clear. Her behavior was emotional abuse, directed not only at Emily but at anyone who dared challenge her. It was as if she thrived on the chaos, relishing the power she wielded over those caught in her web. As I watched her flirtations unfold, my heart ached for Emily. She was trapped in a cycle of abuse, bound by fear and denial. I knew I had to intervene, to open her eyes to the truth without pushing her further away. But how could I break through the walls she'd built around her heart? Emily's denial was a shield, a protective layer against the harsh reality of her mother's behavior. Yet, with each passing day, Tia's actions grew more brazen, making it increasingly difficult for Emily to ignore the truth. One evening, while visiting, I witnessed a scene that solidified my fears. Tia had invited a young man, a recent college graduate, to their hotel room, her flirtation evident from the moment he stepped through the door. "Let me show you the world," Tia purred, her voice dripping with charm as she poured him drink after drink. The young man, clearly flattered by the attention, was eager to please. I watched with growing horror as Tia leaned in closer, her laughter echoing through the hall, her intentions all too clear. When he stumbled towards the bathroom, Tia followed, her giggles a haunting melody that lingered in the air. I could no longer bear it. I had to confront Emily, to demand she see the truth about her mother. At first, she bristled at my words, insisting I was overreacting, but as I laid out the evidence, her defenses began to crack. "You're right," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know she's not a good person, but I'm terrified of what she'll do to me if I try to leave." I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. I assured her she wasn't alone, offering my unwavering support as she faced the daunting task of escaping her mother's grip. Together, we began to devise a plan. Emily needed to reclaim her life, to break free from the suffocating hold Tia had on her. The journey was anything but easy. Tia fought back fiercely, wielding guilt and manipulation like weapons. She twisted Emily's love for her into a noose, reminding her of all the sacrifices she had made. Yet, despite the emotional turmoil, Emily's determination shone through. She found a job, rented an apartment, and slowly began to build a life independent of Tia's influence. As Emily's journey unfolded, I watched in awe as she transformed. With each small victory, she gained confidence, her spirit flickering back to life. I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me. Emily was finally beginning to break free from the chains of her mother's abuse, and while challenges still loomed ahead, I knew she possessed the strength to confront them head-on. One evening, as we celebrated her newfound independence over takeout in her small but cozy apartment, I couldn't help but smile. "You did this," I said, raising my glass. "You fought back." Emily beamed, a lightness in her eyes that had been absent for so long. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, gratitude washing over her features. In that moment, I realized that while Tia may have cast a long shadow, the light of resilience and friendship could pierce through. Together, we would continue to face the echoes of the past, stronger for having fought against the darkness. As the weeks turned into months, Emily settled into her new life with surprising grace. Her apartment, though small, became a sanctuary filled with the vibrant energy of new beginnings. We transformed it together, painting the walls a warm yellow and filling it with plants that thrived in the sunlight. Each new addition felt like a declaration of independence, a sign that she was reclaiming her identity. But while Emily blossomed, the shadow of Tia loomed large. Even from a distance, Tia's manipulative influence lingered like a storm cloud. She would occasionally call or text, weaving guilt into her messages. "I miss you, Emily. You're my only daughter. Why are you shutting me out?" Each message felt like a dagger aimed to wound. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, Emily's phone buzzed with another message from Tia. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from relaxation to tension. "I can't do this," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought I was free." I placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You are free. But breaking away doesn't mean she'll stop trying to pull you back in." The conversation turned serious as we discussed strategies for coping with Tia's attempts at re-establishing control. Emily decided to set firm boundaries, limiting her interactions with Tia and focusing on her own healing. It was a monumental step, but I knew it would be a difficult journey. Then, one fateful evening, everything changed. Emily had just finished a long shift at her new job and was excited to share her day. I watched her light up as she recounted her experiences, but her joy quickly dimmed when she received another call from Tia. The tone of the conversation shifted. Emily's expression twisted from hope to confusion, then to anger. "What did she say?" I asked gently, sensing the tension in her voice. Emily threw her phone onto the couch. "She said she's coming over. She claims she wants to talk things out." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are you ready for that?" Emily hesitated. "I don't know." Part of me wants to confront her, but part of me is terrified. "Let's prepare for it together," I suggested, determined to support her through whatever was to come. We spent the next hour discussing potential scenarios, role-playing how she could stand her ground against Tia's manipulative tactics. When the doorbell finally rang, I felt my heart race. Emily took a deep breath and nodded at me to stay close. She opened the door to reveal Tia, who stood there with an air of false innocence, a charming smile plastered on her face. "Emily, I'm so glad to see you," Tia exclaimed, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "I just wanted to check on you. You've been so distant lately." "Maybe because I need space," Emily replied, her voice steady but low. Tia feigned hurt. "Space? I'm your mother. I only want what's best for you. You're throwing away a wonderful relationship." Emily's eyes narrowed. "What I'm throwing away is your manipulation. I won't be a part of it anymore." The confrontation escalated quickly. Tia attempted to charm Emily back into submission, using every emotional weapon in her arsenal: guilt, nostalgia, even tears. But Emily stood firm, echoing the boundaries we had discussed. I watched in awe as she refused to back down, her voice growing stronger with each passing moment. As Tia's facade began to crack, she lashed out, revealing her true colors. "You think you're better than me? You'll regret this when you realize how alone you are without me." In that moment, it became clear Tia was losing her grip. Emily remained steadfast, holding her ground as Tia's words dripped with venom. "I'm not alone," Emily retorted, her voice unwavering. "I have my own life now. I deserve to be happy." Finally, Tia, her mask fully removed, stormed out, her threats echoing down the hallway. Emily collapsed onto the couch, her body trembling with the adrenaline of the confrontation. I rushed to her side, wrapping my arms around her in a tight embrace. "You did it," I whispered, pride swelling in my chest. "You stood up to her." But in the days that followed, the aftermath of Tia's visit weighed heavily on both of us. Emily experienced a whirlwind of emotions, relief mixed with fear. What would Tia do next? Would she retaliate? Determined to help her navigate this turbulent time, I encouraged Emily to lean on her support network. She reached out to friends and began attending therapy sessions. With each conversation, she peeled back the layers of her past, slowly healing from the emotional scars left by Tia. As Emily flourished in her newfound independence, we started to explore new adventures together. We went hiking, tried cooking new recipes, and even signed up for a pottery class. Each experience added to her sense of self, building confidence that Tia could never take away. Months passed, and just when we thought the worst was behind us, Tia reared her head once again. One evening, we received an unexpected package, a letter from Tia, filled with accusations and manipulative pleas. "You'll regret abandoning your mother," it read. "No one else will love you like I do." Emily's hands trembled as she read it. "I can't believe she's still trying to manipulate me. I thought I was done with this. Remember how far you've come," I reminded her. "You're stronger than you realize. Let's not give her power over you." We decided to turn Tia's words into a catalyst for empowerment. Emily wrote a response, pouring her heart into the letter and laying bare her feelings. She spoke of her journey, her growth, and her resolve to move forward without Tia's toxicity. When she sealed that envelope and sent it off, a weight lifted from her shoulders. It was a final act of closure, a declaration that she would no longer allow Tia to dictate her life. As Emily continued to thrive, I marveled at her resilience. She was no longer the girl tethered to her mother's whims. She was a woman, carving her own path. And as we stood side by side, watching the sunset from her balcony, I knew this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. "Here's to new beginnings," Emily said, raising a glass of sparkling water. "Here's to you," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. Together, we would face whatever challenges lay ahead, stronger and more united than ever.